Hello friends, so here in this video we will discuss some of the questions which were asked previously in UPSC mains exam. The first question that we will discuss today is the scope of public administration. So the first question that we are going to discuss is on the scope of discipline of public administration. So let us go into the question that is asked. This question was asked in 2018 mains for 10 marks. So coming to the question, here is the question. The scope of discipline of public administration is determined by what an administrative system does. Does it mean that the scope of this discipline is boundaryless? So if we look into the elements of the question asked, the question is on the scope of public administration and how the scope of public administration is determined by the administrative system. That is, the question says that the scope of public administration is determined by what an administrative system does. That means the question essentially deals with the systems approach. So we are here, the question uses a word called as administrative system. And the scope of public administration is boundaryless or not. So this is the point which we should comment on it. Looking into the structure of the answer. So first we should define what is public administration, right, by specifically focusing on the scope of public administration. Second point, highlighting the scope of public administration by seeing public administration as a subsystem which is integrated and influenced by other subsystems. Third, we should answer whether public administration is boundaryless or not. That is, we should answer on the point of boundary of public administration. So coming to the scope of public administration, so public administration initially is defined as a systematic application of law or any application of law according to Woodrow Wilson is an act of administration. The founding fathers of public administration has identified public administration with the executive branch of the state, which is mainly concerned with the implementation of public policies or public laws. So here the scope of public administration is confined only to the implementation or executive branch of the government. But however, this view of this narrow definition of public administration was countered by highlighting the role of public administration even in the other branches of the state, that is even in the political process. So the public administration, the scope of public administration is always defined by the scope of state. Public administration is essentially a subsystem which is integrated and influenced by other subsystems. So by taking the systems approach, by using the systems approach, we can say that public administration is one of the subsystems which is in continuous interaction and is influenced and also influences other subsystems. Right? So it is this different subsystems of a state that defines the scope of public administration. So if we look into the if we look into the different subsystems of state, it includes the political subsystem, the economic subsystem, the socio-cultural subsystem, so along with public administration as a different subsystem. So each of these subsystems, they are in continuous interaction. And they influences public administration. So here, by using this approach, we can define the scope of public administration. So if you take this political subsystem, so it is this political subsystem that normally deals with the nature of state, right? It is this political subsystem that helps in understanding the nature of state, where the state from laissez-faire time to the contemporary period, it is continuously changing. So this changes in the nature of state also affects the scope of public administration. So state emerged as during the legislative time. State was seen as a police state, a regulatory state. Then emerged the administrative state. Then came a welfare state. Again, from there, it is a corporate state and a competitive state. So each state has its own functions. So the state got emerged from a police state to administrative state to welfare state to corporate state. In each of this transition, right? In each of this transition, state is concerned with certain activities. State has its own functions. So all the functions of the state are nothing but the functions of public administration. So political subsystem has widened the scope of public administration by bringing new dimensions to the states, bringing new dimensions and defining the new scope of state. So here we need to highlight the scope of public administration in welfare state, the scope of public administration in corporate state. All right, as a part of welfare state, as an instrument of welfare state, public administration is mainly concerned with bringing socio-economic development of the state. Right, so bringing all the techniques, assisting the political system in framing of policies and programs that ensures socio-economic development of the state, particularly in alleviation of poverty, removal of inequalities, and all other socio-economic challenges. And in the corporate state, public administration is required to act as a facilitator, as a catalyst, as a regulator. So these are the new dimensions, these are the new functions adopted by public administration in the corporate state. So public administration is required to face the new challenges posed by this corporate state or neoliberal state, which has brought economic inequalities, social challenges along with this acceptance of privatization and marketization. So now the scope of public administration is not just confined to welfare activities, but also it is concerned with the challenges posed by the neoliberal policies. Similarly, the economic subsystem again increased the scope of public administration by advocating the philosophy of liberalization, privatization, globalization, where public administration is to answer the new challenges emerged because of rollback of state. So as this LPG and new public management has given a call for rollback of state, so public administration should, the scope of public administration, right, is in identifying the new challenges that emerges from this rollback of state. Right. Similarly, the socio-cultural subsystem. The socio-cultural subsystem always provides certain demands. Demands always emerges. Demands always emanates from the society. And after all, the public administration as an institution as well as an instrument of the state is required to fulfill the demands of the society. Right. So these demands of society, they are not constant. They are continuously changing because of changing nature of state and because of changing economic philosophy. Right. So here the societal demands, right, it has changed from mere requirement of basic provisions like food, clothing, shelter to removal of poverty, removal of unemployment, to a newly emerged challenges like urbanization, social inequalities, increasing social security challenges, gender atrocities. So these are the new social challenges that have emerged. So these new social challenges from the social subsystem again widen the scope of public administration. So public administration as a subsystem is always influenced by these political, economic and socio-cultural subsystems, and the scope of public administration is defined by the entire system. From the above discussion, we can say that as there is a continuous changes in the nature of state, the scope of public administration is increasingly becoming boundaryless. But this is a false imagination where the scope of public administration is proportionate to the scope of state. That is, the scope of public administration is totally dependent on the state. So state always have a particular goals and objectives. So it is this particularness of goals and objectives of the state that determine the boundary of public administration. So it is wrong to assume that public administration's boundary is boundaryless. There is a boundary for scope of public administration, but these boundaries are ever changing. It is continuously increasing. There is a continuous broadening of scope of public administration. So this is the answer that should be given to this question.